Hello and welcome to the channel. On today's tutorial, I'll be sharing a requested video of how to draft and sew this corset with an elongated basque. So if it's your first time viewing my channel, please hit on the subscribe button. So let's dive right into today's video. So the first step I'm going to take right now is to go ahead to mark out all my vertical measurements on my pattern paper. So I'm going to place my tape and I'm going to mark my shoulder to bust line, which is about 9 inches. Mark my shoulder to underbust, which is 12, my shoulder to waistline 17, and from that point I'm going to add 5 inches for my elongated basque. So you can use 6 and you can also use 4, but if you want it to be very long, just like you have seen in the video at the beginning, you're going to use about 5 to 6 inches. So I'll go ahead and I'll repeat all the markings again. So after I'm done marking, the next step is just to go ahead to draw out those lines, marking a straight line. So after that, the next thing I'm going to do right now is to mark my shoulder circumference divided by 2. My shoulder is 14 divided by 2. I have 7 inches and I'll mark. I'll place my tape, come down by 1 inch, and I'll place my ruler, connect it down to the shoulder line. So after I'm done doing this, the next is to get my chest line, and to get my your chest line is your bust circumference divided by 6 plus 1.5 inches, and I'm going to make a line at that point. So I'm going to mark what I have at my shoulder, which is 7, to make sure my line is straight, and I will draw and connect it back to my chest line. So after this, the next step I'm going to take right now is to place this, and I'm going to divide it into 2. Dividing it into 2, I have 3.5 inches. That's 7 divided by 2. And I'll go ahead to mark my bust circumference to serve as a guide. So from this point, I'm just going to connect it. So I'm not going to be touching the upper part of this pattern, and I'll go ahead to outline all this as chest line, bust line, under bust, waistline, and my basque length. So right now I'm going to mark my nipple to nipple divided by 2. My nipple to nipple is 3.5, that is 7 inches divided by 2. I have 3.5, and I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to draw a straight line. So after I'm done doing that, I'm going to be taking my 1 inch dart at the lower part. So I'm just marking a straight dart to make it easier to work with. So at the underbust also, I'm going to go ahead to mark my 1 inch dart at both sides. So if you're a plus size, at this point you're going to mark 1.5 inches at both sides, and I'll just go ahead to use my pencil to draw a straight line connecting all the dots that I have marked. So after I'm done marking, the next step I'm going to take is to draw my cup side, and I'm going to go ahead to take my French curve, connect from my bust point down to my underbust, and at the other side I'm going to connect from my underbust down to my bust line, or from my bust line to my underbust. So this is what I have, and I'll go ahead to outline it with my marker so that it's going to be very visible. So after I'm done marking that, the next step I'm going to take is to extend this line, my nipple to nipple line, upwards. And from that point I'll be going up by 2 inches. You can go up by 1.5 or more if you don't want to reveal your bust. So I'll just draw a straight line at that point to serve as a guide. So at my chest line, I'm going to go ahead to draw out the line, and from that chest line point I'll go in by ½ inch. And I'm going to take it down to the bust line. I'll go ahead to use my marker to connect it. So I'll bring in my French curve, and I'm going to connect it down to my underbust line. So after I'm done doing that, I'll be taking in 1 inch dart at both sides, and I'm going to take it up this way. So the next step I'm going to take is to place my French curve, connect from that point down to the center of the corset. So this is what I have, and to draw my curve for the other side, I'll mark my bust circumference divided by 4. So before I draw my cup on this side, I'm going to go ahead to blend it out to make sure that it matches. So I'm just going to connect down to this part. So another way of doing this is to divide what you have from your armhole to your bust point circumference. So from that point, I'll just go ahead and place my French curve and I'll connect. So this is what I have at this point. So the next step I'm going to take is to come down. I want to divide my cup. I'll be using 1.5. So from there, I'll connect it down to my bust line, and on this part I'm going to connect it to my bust line also. So I'll just go ahead and I will label my cup as A, B, C, and D. Go ahead and I will mark my body circumference divided by 4, which leaves me at 8.3. Measure these 2 inches that intake and mark, and I'll be adding my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. Extend the line up to that part and take it down to my bust line. At the underbust, I'll measure the underbust circumference divided by 4. Go ahead, measure the 2 inches that intake, replace and mark my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. At this point, mark my waist circumference divided by 4, measure the 2 inches that intake, and I will mark my 1.5 inch sewing allowance. So whatever I have at my waistline, I'm going to extend it to my basque because we are going to cut off that part. Sorry, it's not going to touch the hip line. So I'll just go ahead and use my ruler and I'm going to connect it down to the basque line. So next you'll be creating your basque line, and to do that you're going to make sure that this line that you have on your waistline meets. Then you can go ahead to place your ruler on it and you're going to draw out your basque. So while drawing out your basque, make sure at this point it matches each other, and I'll draw like a little curve at that point. Now I'll label this as C meaning center and S meaning side, and the next thing is to cut out my pattern. So to cut out my pattern, I'll just blend in all my lines that I need to blend in first. So I'll go ahead and I will cut out my pattern. So at this point, if you find this tutorial very interesting and educative, please don't forget to hit on the subscribe button, give this video a thumbs up, and if you're a returning subscriber, thank you for always supporting my channel. So at this point, in order to blend out the waistline, I'm going to go in by that 1.5 inch, which is my sewing allowance, and I'll go ahead to place my ruler and I'm going to reconnect. So with this, it will be giving it that elongated look at the front part of the corset. So I'll just go ahead and cut out. So, and I will continue cutting my cup and other parts of the corset. So after I'm done cutting out my corset, this is what I have. This is what the front part of my corset looks like. Next, we are going to move over to draft the back part of my corset. So on the upper part of this corset, which I have the A and B cup, I'll be merging it together. So for my back pattern, I've gone ahead to mark out my zipper allowance. Now I'll be placing my pattern on it and I'll be taking note where the waistline stopped. So the waistline stopped at this mark immediately after my C label. So I'll just go ahead and pin it down. So this is like the easiest method of cutting out your back piece. So I'm just going to place it also the other side and I'm going to pin it down just like I pinned the other side, but make sure that the cup sides meet and all the lines meet together. So after I'm done, I'll be lifting up the basque part. That is where my basque started. That's like the waistline. I'm going to lift it up this way and make sure I have a straight line. I'll go ahead to follow that line on that part. I'll place my ruler and I'll draw out a straight line. So what I'll do right now is I'm going to go ahead to cut this out, and after I'm done cutting out, I'm just going to go ahead to trace the sides also. So this is what I have, and I'll just go ahead to unpin my pattern. But before I do that, I'll be getting rid of the bulginess at the back of the dress. I'll mark 1/2 inch and I'll go ahead to extend it upwards this way, and after that I'm just going to cut out what I have at that part of my corset, which is the back. So next step, I'll just go ahead to unpin my pattern, and after unpinning my pattern, my back pattern is ready, and this is what we have, as simple as that. And I'll go ahead to label it as back. So with this, we have come to the end of today's tutorial. So please don't forget to join us in our sewing tutorial, and if you haven't yet subscribed, please hit on the subscribe button, and don't forget to give this video a thumbs up. Thanks.